This video is called, Does a Person Like Me Have Any Friends? And I'll explain what like me means in this video. I'm going to do two videos. This is a psychological analysis of society more than me, I guess. But the other one will be a psychological analysis of me and my talents and what I'm not talented at. And there's purpose behind these videos. I won't go into that. So, does a person like me have any friends? The short answer is, sort of. But I would say I have two friends. And one is not an American, doesn't live in America, but did try to live in America and was here maybe 10 years. I don't know how many years. And was on his way out the airport and to leave, and was a few days late leaving on his visa. And he says a woman who was apparently clearly a lesbian woman made sure he can't ever come back again. And he was on his way out a few days late, overstaying his visa after going to college here, working here for, I'm not going to say 10 years for sure, but he was my roommate at one point way back then. And he's Ecuadorian, Hispanic. And so what do I have any friends? And I ask that because a person who will stick up for police, stick up for, I'll stick up for thieves too. If they're being overly abused, I stick up for anybody. That I actually have gone out of my way to stick up for anybody who's being picked on. So, but I believe that we should have police, but good police. And I do believe so. So does somebody like that have friends? Does somebody who talks about the drug cartel have any friends? And I grew up in a drug-free side of society, but was introduced to it a little at age 19, I guess, to the underground, and somewhat introduced to it with the culture more than the drug stuff. So, but I contest the drug cartel. I do things other people don't do. So I'll just say there's many reasons I don't have friends. I've been robbed a lot. I've had some people would think I'm an addict, and then people that know me in the streets don't think I'm an addict. And then, but people I have gone out with periodically would think I'm an addict. But most people that I've lived with in the streets don't think I'm an addict. And some of them are surprised to find out I've ever used or whatever. So, but people from the drug-free side of society assume I'm an addict, right? But I've been robbed a lot, right? So that's what made them assume that. If I had not been robbed and I could have went out and used or whatever and never got robbed, they may never have thought or suspected that I'm an addict. So I'm a guy who I can live on the clean side of society, and I can have a better diet than everybody else. If I wasn't doing videos and stuff, I'd have a better exercise routine than most people. But diet, I have better dietary practices than everybody. But you still got the people who would nitpick and say, I caught you here, caught you there. But on the other hand, I can out eat everybody too, and eat poorly if I want. Used to. So now it's hard for me to lose weight if I do that. But I outwork people, do all those kind of things. Anyway, I'm the guy that can, if you're competing to see who's a good boy or whatever, I could win that competition back in the day. Still kind of do, but that's in the view of people who stereotype people. But do I have any friends? And from that side of society, no. Do I have any friends from the church side, the clean side, all that? Not really any friends. I'll say I've had a lot of acquaintances, but as far as if I could say I've have any friends, it'd be two people, and we don't agree on everything. And I don't get to see the people, but I've had one person in my life in the last few years too, that's had my back and helped me out, and that's that is an American, and then I have one person, like when I was in my worst trouble, that person would help me periodically. And then, but the other person was my friend, was a roommate of mine in school. And years ago, 1992. or 91, 90 and 91. I forget if it was 90 and 91 or 92, 93. I think it was 90 and 91, maybe even 92, 1992. And so that person is a person who I could hang out with and have fun, go to the movies, joke around a lot, knows my beliefs, might have a little bit of a talk. Mostly we'd joke around and wouldn't get into deep conversation. But no matter what, if I hung out with that person, I know we could have fun, go kick it, kill the boredom. And if he's still single, I'm single, you might, say, hey, that's a cute lady, that's a cute girl, whatever. So that kind of stuff. But the person's also, of course, at our age, I don't know if we do that, but some maybe. But he's just a good old boy, one of those, right? But he's Hispanic, and he's not. I guess he still can't get back into our country. But but we don't have the same political views. I think he leans Democrat, partly because he feels like Republicans kicked him out. But in my view, if it was a lesbian that put him out, she, not always, but she could have been Democrat, and she maybe knew something about him and kicked him out. I don't think he should have been kicked out, banned. He was on his way out. They caught him on the way out, and he was just a few days over, and he had been there long enough to have a citizenship, done everything right, good worker, clean guy, not a drinker, didn't do drugs or anything. So, anyhow, but yeah, that's my one person I would call a friend, and I would consider the person that helped me out to be a friend. Otherwise, I do have a lot of acquaintances, but I don't reveal who people are I know or anything, because I don't have anybody close, and I do feel that it's true that my lifestyle, I would be afraid that somebody being associated with me might be put in danger. So I could have more friends if I wasn't protecting everybody's safety by not letting them be my friend. So that's because I contest the cartel, mostly because I'll speak politics. I'll speak politics and I'll speak up for Christ. What brings me the most danger, I guess, in certain circles, speaking on drug cartel stuff can get you hurt, but mostly I'm speaking philosophy. I'm not talking go after this person, that person. I'm not into busting people for drugs. I think you should legalize them. So I have a voice there because I believe in medicine. But that does not make me friends. That's why I don't have friends in the church side of society. So generally, that makes it hard to have any friends in the Christian culture of today, which I disagree with. So I disagree with the Christian culture. In my family, do I have any friends in my family and stuff? Not really. We have we touch base and this and that, but no, we don't agree with each other. So as far as I don't really even know if we agree with each other. But partly that's because I haven't been around. I don't want to be a burden on people either. So I coordinate my ways, different ways, because I have been robbed of 5. I've had it's really hate crimes. It's not because of doing drugs. It's hate crimes. It's because I hung in places with people who are racist against me, and so people blame it on drugs and stuff. But nobody's ever seen me from those circles. Nobody's ever seen me not sober. So, and only the people, mostly, except a couple times, had seen me when I'm not sober, who are the people where I would go party with, right? And so that was, for me, it's a party. For them, it's a business, right? Most of them. But it'd be one day, and then after that, snap out of it. But you can lose everything in one day. So that stopped me from getting friends. So it's a tough question. Does somebody like me have friends? No, I would have preferred to have more people I can talk to, get advice from. I don't have anybody that I know who will give me good advice based on the cards I've been dealt. And so I don't have any. I have people who be criticize it, and then if that really kind of can corner them and they're yelling at me, put me down or whatever, and I corner them and I say, okay, what would you do? Would you change this? Would you do that? And they're like, no, you better. They'll criticize it and say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? Why don't you do this? And then when I say, look, should I change this and do this different? They're like, nah, you better keep doing that. And they don't have a solution as part of it. So it's just because when you're recovering, I won't go into it all, but you have you have tough cards sometimes when you've dealt with theft and different things, health issues too and stuff. So you have. Do I have friends? I don't have any active friends. I'll put it like that. So I don't, but I don't know if I have time for them. See, I'm making a video. But I like it in a lot of ways. I might prefer not having friends. My best friends are the people who leave me alone and don't bother me. I could say that. So that not really. I mean, at times you definitely want to talk to people, but I will talk to strangers. I will talk to not too much anymore, but I will talk, and if I can help them, I have acquaintances like in the streets. I've had acquaintances that could be considered. You could call them a friend, but they're acquaintances mostly because I've had some people who, I advise people on where to go to get help, get a job, do whatever, right? And a lot of people don't do that, but I do. I'll give people tips on how to, directions. A lot of people don't do that today. They just, don't talk, don't bother me. So you got a lot of really mean people in society, and then some that don't trust talking to anybody. They might turn on them. And then you have, it's a variety, but no, this is a short video, I guess. Because I didn't know if it was going to be short. I thought it might go into some descriptions. Here. And, or it might lead on a connection to something else. But I think my longer video will be talking about my psychological makeup. So I guess the purpose of this video, I'm not saying, oh, woe is me, I don't have friends. I'm not saying that. That's not the purpose of the video, but I'm showing you the reality of, in some situations, that I've lost friends because I haven't had transportation. I'll put it like that. Where, I've had people that just didn't want to deal with me anymore. Probably thought he doesn't care about nobody or this or that, but I couldn't go visit people once my vehicles were set on fire, some other vehicles were robbed and never replaced or anything. Because I chose, some people will say, because that's what you get for hanging around with. So I've had people say that's what you get for hanging around with black people, and I disagree. I think it's the cartel. I always disagreed. I said it's different. It's something different than that. It's not about that. But in hindsight, I would say, yeah, it was racist that ended up robbing me. But they will rob people on their own. But they robbed me based on ethnicity. Most of them did. Right, because they took my stuff, and you don't get anything for it, and all that. So, but the assumption is that you do. They wouldn't do that with witnesses there. They wouldn't do that to somebody else. So that's, but that's a part of it. That's definitely a part of it. And then, so learning how to be in society where you don't fit in. So I am a misfit. What do you call it? A misfit. I'm the ugly duckling. In all places I've hung out, I'm the ugly duckling in black neighborhoods because I'm not black, right? They do talk to me like I'm the ugly duckling, an ugly duckling, ugly white boy or whatever, pale face. I mean, a lot of them do, right? So we're weak or whatever, can't jump, can't do anything. They do that. They don't harp on it, a lot of them, but some of them do that. I'll put it like that. In those situations, in society, on the white side, or not just the white side, even black people who are successful and not into those cultures, who are anti-drug. So it's really split between anti-drug. That's the thing. We do have segregation based on the drug laws, and they isolate people. If you get labeled an addict or what, that's all that matters. You get labeled an addict, anybody can rob you or abuse you that they want, and that side of society knows it. They may know it instinctively rather than, but I'm putting that out there. It's a pattern. It's a conspiracy at this point, whether it's a known conspiracy or just a learned segregation, rightful segregation type of thing. So you don't want, I'm just going to say, you don't want that culture to bleed into the drug-free culture because it's unlicensed dealing and stuff. It's unlicensed dealers. It's people who hate police and all that but they're all confused. They don't understand why the drug laws are the way they are. and they're not told not to steal or anything. So they have proud thieves and stuff within that realm because they think they have a right to steal because they've been taught everything has been stolen from them, all their rights, and a lot of them have the way it's set up for minor things. So, and then they have a lot of people grow up with their parents teaching them that stuff, teaching them to be the gangsters and to survive that way. And so when you come to the other, I say the other side of society, the drug-free side of society, it's wrong that they need to change the laws. It shouldn't be segregated that way. It should be, if there's a segregation, we should segregate mentally. Make people feel segregated who are thieves and who are killers or don't have any respect, and they're always going to fight and not talk. So, I mean, the goal of people understand the sense of not fighting and talking things out, because it's a lot easier to deal with, to walk away, and if you can't agree, walk away, but come to an understanding. We're not fighting. But in that some parts of that culture, the underground culture, you do have the people who paved the way for all that, to keep it in business. They're the ones that want to fight and talk and never talk about anything but scare everybody away from talking, so that they can keep people enslaved to that. So that's what I've said. People have threatened me for talking or for liking Trump. They're the ones that are the slave runners of all that stuff, generally. And some of them do it because for pride. Some of them know exactly what they're doing. Most of them probably know exactly what they're doing. They're protecting their business, their bully business. They're slave masters, and they get to go anywhere they want. Somehow, and they get to any slave house they want to, because they've taken over people's houses a lot of times. So that's that. I won't say anyone of the house, but they have a lot of options, I guess, or I don't know exactly, but because of those violent types, I don't unless somebody has a discussion with me that they're comfortable with being my friend, even though they could potentially put their life in danger at times, unless we have that conversation. I don't try to be somebody's friend too much. I've tried to have that conversation and nobody ever has it. And then they'll act like that's not the issue in some circle, closer people I've known pretty well. And I'm be the misfit. So I'm the ugly duckling on, not just in black communities, but because of racism, not because of me. I'm not saying I'm pretty, but at the same time, I don't know what my appeal is. There should be a female in the world, some female that likes me or something. You would think my mannerisms, whether I'm not a good speaker or am or not am coordinated, that somebody might find something about me appealing, the natural way, right? So there's a lot of people who are in relationships and stuff. I'll put it like that. Who, besides Brad Pitt, right? But anyhow, that's beside the point. The reason if it comes to boyfriend and girlfriend, there's other reasons I don't have a girlfriend and wife, right? So, and that's also partly, I'll say, from the being, having dealt with recovering from theft, and mostly that. And so, and then also wanting to have my head together and get past any binge relapses. So, but see, what's different though, I am different in that I've never had a regular addiction or claim to that it's an addiction. That addiction is real, even the way they define it today. But, but as far as me getting lonely or whatever, and because I don't fit in either community, I'm a misfit. So I'm an ugly duckling from being robbed in the regular society, drug-free society. I'm an ugly duckling for being robbed, being poor, not looking like I can take care of myself. Because I don't have a car. People don't have a car. They get frowned on already in a lot of most places. So those kind of things, and I'm a man. I'm not a woman. So a woman, it's a little different for a woman, but even today, that same pressure is on women more than it used to be to have a house, a car, apartment, a car, whatever. But, and so for that reason, you could call me the ugly duckling. But I forget my other point. There are some points to bring up there, but the purpose of this is to show I'm not the only one. So the fact that I'm a misfit, if you know, what's weird about me as I'll call myself a misfit here. This just for the context of the subject, and that it shouldn't be from the Christianity standpoint. People shouldn't be that stereotyped and isolated, in a sense. But I don't have time to be in social realms because I study psychological warfare. I'm trying to, and I don't have a good memory. So if we got into, maybe I'll just combine the subjects right here and get it. Or I don't know if I'll do a full subject, but I don't. Some people from regular society, if you talk about your talents and what you're not talented at, they'll say, "Oh, yes, you can," because everybody has to prove. You go to do a resume and you go to apply for jobs and all this. You never let anybody know your weaknesses. So people are afraid to say their weaknesses. But what I like about my candid talk is I'm going to tell you I know some of my weaknesses, and I don't know them all because when I look at myself on video, I think I've described myself well, and I realize when I look at some things or even hear myself sing, I thought it sounded one way, and I listened to it, it didn't sound like what I wanted, and so I'm not talented to be able to make something express something exactly the way I want it a lot of times. But I've worked at that because I do what I am talented at is I'm naturally inquisitive. And I'll say naturally, I think I've been pretty naturally inquisitive even before I was Christian. So I think that some of my natural inquisition comes from being Christian. Maybe a talent I have there too, as far as having a endurance for analyzing and seeking out lies that hurt people. And really that comes from a compassion thing, though. That natural compassion, because I believe in heaven and hell. And I believe in it literally and strongly. I feel like it's a gift, like I'm rescued. I'm already rescued. I feel rescued, and like everybody else is in danger, right? I felt that way, and I have compassion for people because they have a choice. And I feel like if people don't make the choice of heaven, then they're just not understanding something, and that's part of it. That is a lot of times, but I can't imagine how somebody just wants misery for eternity, misery and separation from God for eternity. When we have all the evidence in the world of pleasure and pain, and most people want pleasure, not pain, and it's a good pleasure. We're talking about good pleasure, moral pleasure, but we also have the physical pleasures to teach us those things. The physical pleasures, even extra ones that are the romantic attractions we have for marriage, which is for marriage here. But in heaven, we don't have that. So, I'm to a point in my life now where I may have more friends in the future. Because part of the reasons I've chosen not to have friends is I've been dysfunctional. We'll just put it like that. I've been somewhat dysfunctional. And what's weird about me is I seem like the most functional. So the bottom line is I'm still dysfunctional because I'd still look for friends. I was looking for friends many times. It wasn't about just going and relapsing. But I'm looking for friendship and some kind of realistic bond where, I'm not being stereotyped. And I've gone to the types of places where I've been robbed before to look for friends. Right? So thinking I'd meet somebody, it's not completely unrealistic in hindsight. Thinking I'd meet somebody who was also deemed somewhat of a misfit in certain circles because of injury that was imposed upon them, debt or poverty imposed upon them. And I thought I'd find somebody who's gotten beyond the pride or understands the cultural divide, but not many people understand that because it's tricky. There's a lot of tricks to it, and psychological warfare has a domino effect. So people are most people go where they're accepted, I guess. And the problem is I can't fit in with the crowd that they do have people that act like family in those circles somewhat, and it's a rough family though, a lot of times because people turn on each other more. They have people turn on each other, and the under the drug, we'll just call it drug-free side of society. People turn on each other in those circles too, but they have all kinds of good paranoia, I'll call it, for being caught breaking the rules of being neighborly and stuff. And they put a block on stealing, block on fighting. They don't fight. I'll put it like that. The most successful people, they won't fight each other. That's a last resort. And they know not to fight, not to go there. We're not wasting our time and going to the hospital, jail. We're not going to do that. And I don't want you to hurt me, and I don't want to hurt you. But we can't be around each other. Now, and I'm not saying that somebody can't lose their temper and want to prove they're tough. And then that some people want to hurt somebody in that state. Some do. But usually if somebody's fighting, a lot of times it's to prove they're tougher than the other person. But people that are trained to away from all the violence, and when you're away from the drug, you're in the drug-free society. A lot of cultures in that society are not accepting of the violence, and they know that's it. We're drawing the line here. There's no violence here. That's unacceptable completely. And so, the funny thing is those cultures will they call the successful side snobs and cold-blooded because they won't let anybody in who they know has been violent or who shows any sign of violence. They steer clear of that. They do, and that's not can I say what I'll say that's not a bad thing. I mean, that's a good thing. That's why they don't have the violence in their circles, right? Now they're ready for self-defense. They're well trained. But if somebody shows signs of violence, they stay away from it. Even, but within their own circles, they can argue loud. They can get real mad, and they know there's no violence is going to result from it. So sometimes, here's the thing. That's another subject I was going to bring up. So in some of these, I could call it white cultures that I know, that are even church cultures. They're not always. They follow all those rules. They know there's no violence going to happen, but they can stay mean-spirited within their own circles, and so that's not the spirit of God. So there's people Christian types, or who with the Christian culture, but might not be Christian, or may not be, who can stay a cynical, well, let's call it stereotyping, pessimistic, angry, a lot. And they know that no violence is going to happen, but they have that bad spirit. They can keep it going within their own circles, and it's not a spirit of God. So you can have all these rules you follow that keep you safe, keep you from harm's way, and be too picky with people, or expect more from other people than you expect from yourself, and then those kind of things. So there's what do they call it? Wicked things in high places. That's part of what the verse that talks about that in the Bible is about. So, but I don't mind. I like being a loner now, but because I study so much. I'm trying to plan so much. I like to, and when I'm not, I'm trying to get my exercise or learn places and stay peaceful places. And I found it's hard to find people. But eventually, I mean, I've had to overcome some of my problems. I do think I've needed some of my problems behind me before I'm not going to say I'm not going to engage socially, because I will engage socially. Mostly, I believe in evangelism. Okay, so for all my earth's problems, all my struggles on earth, pale in comparison, and that's what keeps me going. I'm glad I can really focus on stuff. I feel, if anybody takes time to look at it, they're like, man, we didn't never notice that, and that's exactly right, and that's true. That's clear evidence of God, and the people we were hating on are actually the peaceful people. Little stuff that people didn't notice. And actually, that's true. I've been hating on the party of peace and calling them the party of all the problems, while the party of all the problems in politics, Republican, Democrat. I mean, There's stuff so obvious. I don't know why people don't get it. Like, you say you hate slavery, but you're voting for the party of slavery. Democrats. Democrat Party of Slavery. You say you hate slavery, and you're calling all white people racist who freed the slaves. So, I mean, are people really that delusional, or are they lied to and fallen for it? Or, and from my experience, I don't see too many, all the bullies in those circles that are always calling people racist that aren't racist. Those are actual slave masters. They're bullies. Those are slave masters. So they're not, maybe not even descendants of slaves, but their desire is to have slavery with them being in charge. And that's not of just white people that they want to make slaves to. They believe in slavery. They believe in being the bully, and but they use slavery as let's say they use falsifying slavery to the party that actually opposed slavery as an excuse and a lie to protect what they're doing, I guess. So they're probably descendants of the slave dealers, a lot of those, but they're descendants of the slave dealers who lie about religion. So most of them are related to false religions, they protect all the false cults out there, all the pagan religions and tribes and stuff like that. And then they call anybody racist. Really, they call anybody racist who's Christians. I just saw a video today about some people in Uganda, and they're sitting there calling Filipinos racist. But they're not talking about religion, but I'm sitting there thinking, Filipinos have a lot of Christians. And so these probably are people who are connected to Islam in Uganda or somewhere. I don't know. I don't know if the person's from Uganda. They're like, we visited Uganda. And this is probably black Islam connections and communist connections from linked to America and Britain with the liberal parties. And they're sitting there they got this new thing. They're calling all these Filipinos racist. Why? Because, in my guess, because I know there's a lot of Christian Filipinos. So really, when they're calling white people racist in America, they're calling this because they're calling, and then the Republicans is because they support Christianity. They're calling anybody who supports Christianity a racist. And Christianity is the only religion and philosophy and everything else that shows us one human race, one equal human race. It shows it. Generally, it shows how we got our skin tone. It appears to show that, right? Because of how we moved different places by language when God changed language. So when I say it shows us, you can infer, you can see that when people moved to Africa, they got darker skin. So that's where I would lean towards thinking, I don't know if Adam and Eve were black or not, because I kind of would lean towards saying they weren't. And somebody will say, that's because he's racist. He's not going to give it, and they won't let you hear the evidence. I'm going to give you evidence. I'm basing it on evidence. All right. So, because it seems that once you move to Africa, Ham moved by language. It was based on language, not skin tone. Ham moved to Africa. His family moved to Africa after the Tower of Babel, after Noah's flood. There was no other people on earth. And then, years and years and years, 6 years, 1,000 years, 6,000 years, I think. I'm not going to calculate that. But at least 6,000 years. You got people living near the equator in Africa. That's probably the reason people's skin darken, right? And if that weren't the case, then why didn't you have that in Russia? Why didn't you have dark skin in Russia? If Adam and Eve were black, then I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying they weren't tan or white. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. We're all one race. We all came from Adam and Eve. But I think the dark skin comes from living near the equator for 6,000 years after the flood, based on language. And so the vitamins, the vitamin D, the natural vegetables and fruits there gave more vitamin D, which darkens the skin to protect you from the sun rays near the equator. It's freezing in Russia, So If Adam and Eve were black, then you would have naturally had black Russians too. Not just you would have some black Russians. You'd have that were there and not moved from Africa after that period of time. So over time, we've all mixed in part not because of slavery, but because we learned each other's languages little by little. We had intermarrying here and there. And so you got more racist black cultures who tell they don't want people intermarrying between ethnicities. There's way more of that in the black culture. But then, you know why? Because they have more their godless cultures are protected. They keep denying Christ. Anybody, by the way, any culture that denies Christ is a godless culture. Because Christ is the only God who gave evidence that he is God with power over the next life. And he's the only one that loved everybody. He loves black people, white people, and we're all cousins. I mean, he's the one that he condones the history of the Bible, and he rose from the dead and then condones the history of the Bible and shows we all came from one root, him, first of all, him, but we came from Adam and Eve. We came from Noah's family after the flood. And it's not, so when they always calling, all the people calling Christians racist, they're calling the Bible racist because they want the freedom to be racist. They want to, but they also want to team up with anybody who hates Really, they want to team up with anybody who hates Christianity, and because Christianity tells us to love our neighbors, they don't want to love their neighbors. They want power, right? And they want to stop hearing about God because it calls out, if they're stealing, it calls them out for stealing. And legitimately, it's a real God calling them out for stealing, saying there is a hell for that. And so they don't want to hear that, right? Because they don't want God. They want to be God on earth and believe there's only one life. And so I won't get into that too much, but so does that lose me friends? It loses me friends because media teaches you can't be an Islamophobe, but it doesn't teach you can't be a Christianophobe. And the fact is, they're two different things. Islam is a lie. Christianity is the truth, right? It shows evidence that it's the truth. There is no evidence that corroborates that Islam is true. None. Or Buddhism, or Hinduism, or Mormonism, or they're tricky though, or Jehovah's Witnesses. And so they won't let us talk about evidence. They don't want evidence. So I don't know. It's amazing how big it is, and that people don't get it and don't understand. Even a lot of Christian churches and stuff don't understand that these simple things. And that's why I bring it to the table. And I didn't bring it to the table. I got it from the Bible. I got it from nature. I'm looking at nature. Everybody dies, you know. So you'd think I'd have a lot of friends. And maybe I will in the future because really I haven't talked about this stuff much. I haven't been outspoken about it. And to me, it's unifying that divide. It divides and it unified because it divides the people who hate God from the people who don't hate God, and it tells the truth. And then a lot of those are revealed in different ways. I'm running out of time, but a lot of those are revealed in different ways. I mean, for instance, you got a lot of people who hate Christians, real Christians. Now, I'm talking about real, true Christians who believe in Christ and heaven and hell, and it's hard for people to understand who's who because you got a lot of fake Christians who are all into the law and rules, and they even worship the laws of the government, the bad laws of the government, because they're into laws and rules, and they don't understand there are crooked laws and rules because they're into power of human beings and using religion just to get money. You know, because they like the stewardship rules. There's all kinds of things. I'm not saying that's all planned out. There's all kinds of traps we fall into with our minds. And I'm always having to guard against them. And I'm always trying to fight my own traps and illusions. So, am I right? So, the thing is, a lot of people think I'm wrong, by the way, about the friend thing. I'm wrong about, I don't have friends too because they disagree with me about cartels. Now, come to find out, I've talked maybe 2 seconds finally, but nobody will talk more than 2 seconds. But I found out that somebody halfway agrees with my views on the cartels now. But I've never confirmed that or heard more about it. And they obviously don't know enough about it to see it's a common denominator of all our problems now. And that's a new way of presenting it for me. But yesterday I came up with. But you have you have people from Islam hating Christians. You have people from Buddhism hating Christians. You got people from Hinduism hating Christians. You got people from Mormonism hating Christians. You got people from Jehovah's Witnesses hating Christians. You got atheists hating Christians. You got racists hating Christians who falsify that Christians are racist. They call it white people, especially Republicans, racist because they actually support the freedom of religion and the freedom of speech, which ends up endorsing Christianity because it's the only religion that makes any sense. Right? Frankly, it's the only forgiving religion. It's the only loving religion. It's the only second chance religion. See, it's real religion, right? Because what is a religion without a real God? It's the only religion with a real God. So, but you're not a Christian. You're not saved by going to church. So in that sense, that's why people say it's not a religion, because it's a relationship. Because you can be in the church and never know God personally. You have to know him personally. You have to love God to go to heaven. So you got to trust him and love him. And he showed who he was when he rose from the dead. I mean, he showed who he was when he did the miracles while he was here. He showed who he was by forgiving on the cross, but rising from the dead for that. He showed who he was when he ascended to heaven. He showed who he was in the Old Testament when he was prophesying Christ and doing miracles for Moses and people back then. So, miracles come from God. He showed who he was. He did miracles. And it says in the last days they'll be looking for miracles. So I don't know how much miracles we can do. Miracles still happen, but they don't happen as much because God already showed himself. He did game, set, match, checkmate. Showed who he was when he rose from the dead, and he never died again, and ascended to heaven 30-something days later, right? So, how does that make me a misfit? I'm not going to say it does. I don't believe people that say you're going to be hated if you stand for God. You're going to be hated by those who hate God, but you're not going to be hated by those who don't hate God, right? So who understand who God is, and they didn't even change the story of Christ for their own mind, and to support not forgiving people for overly judging people for stuff like drinking a beer, and having a cigarette. God's not, he does say take care of your body, but that's just one sin. Those aren't the only sins. And I think you're going to have a desire to help. If you have smoked cigarettes and you're a real Christian, you're going to have a desire to figure out how to do it safer. And there can be times where you get carried away. Say if something depressing happens, you get robbed and you don't know how you're going to recover. You might fall for the medicine stuff. And that's a proper time to use medicine. But if you're thinking and you want to take care of your body, you don't want to throw in the towel and kill yourself with cigarettes. You're going to think of a way to get, at least if you feel like you can't quit for a while, you're going to try to take palm olives or something that doesn't have so much tar in it and stuff. You might even try to hold it under your tongue and not speed up your death instead of sucking it into your lungs and let the nicotine absorb through your tongue. That's the medicine, the nicotine. So, you're going to try, and then you're going to hope that there's a time where you feel like you can put your foot down and quit. Because doing what you did, it already helps you cut back, and it helps you get some confidence. You're not hurting yourself. It helps you stay less depressed, less often anyway. So suppression can hit real quick sometimes, but you can at least have a goal to fight depression and not be depressed as often. And there are going to be times you're going to try to quit all the way. But if you don't quit all the way, do I think you're not saved? If you're not trying to find safer ways to smoke and you don't care and you never snap out of that, I don't think you're saved. That's a good evidence you're not saved. But to say you can't quit at all in full, totally quit, doesn't necessarily mean you're not saved if you're still trying to limit it and take care of your body the best you can. But you should look for alternatives and better, try to even use caffeine because that's, even though caffeine's not that healthy either, it's just not good for your lungs to have tar and stuff in them. And that's more dangerous than other things. So you should be trying to hold it in your mouth if you're going to do it. You should, but if you're not trying and you don't care to ever try, the chances are you're not saved, right? So, so the church will disagree with me on stuff like that. But the Bible, the truth is, that's heresy. what they're teaching is heresy. And so and there is a lot of heresy today based on those things, and a lot of ignoring of the fact that the drug cartels, they look over, it's easy to look over facts. There's certain facts I haven't even noticed until recently about the fact that it's hard to keep up with statistics. The fact that they'll demonize, like we could clean up society, and the Democrats will find one killing. Say we've stopped all the killings almost in America, but one person kills somebody, and then they'll talk the people that fall for it. They'll talk them into voting Democrat because look how terrible society is. We found one killing, and they'll show it a million times in the news and make it look like it's the worst society. It's worse than it was, and when it's way better. And that's every time we get the Republicans, it's usually mostly way better, except for the Democrats creating COVID. They always blame Trump for that. They created COVID because they hate Trump, most likely. So, because when he took the money away from the global scientists, he defunded the global science community, the New World Order, the global warming scientists, the worldwide. He defunded it. Then all of a sudden we get COVID because they wanted revenge. So now it's also a chance that they were. You could say it's an accident, but the fact that they keep hiding where it came from, I'm pretty sure they did that on purpose. But it's possible it was an accident, But it certainly wasn't Trump that did it. He wouldn't do that to himself. He wouldn't do that when he's trying to prove he's already got more jobs than ever for people and had great success, and then he throws COVID on himself. That doesn't even make sense. He makes it look like, and the people are saying he did it. That's a lie. Anyway, the people who are lying and saying Trump did it know who did it, probably. All right, I'm going to close out. But yeah, I have two friends, one who's from Ecuador and one who is in America, and it helped me out at times. And but I don't talk to that friend much because they're married and busy, and so I don't know. He was Democrat and was Republican. I'm independent now, but I still support the Republican side. I would never support the Democrat side. I don't see how I could do that unless they became completely pro-Christ, and then and I know they're not faking it too. But they're anti-Christ. That's the anti-Christ party. How can I support the Democrat Party? The Republican Party, I support most of the stuff, but they're getting a lot of fakes in there, and they're not helping with legalizing proper medicines to disempower, with licensed dealers to disempower the drug cartels, and because they're delusional, some of them, and some of them may be partnering with Democrats to play that delusion. Some of them in the power, but generally the Republican Party does not oppose pro-Christ, and it's the one that ended slavery, and they're the ones that brought us freedom and the free market system, right? And that's the best defense against slavery, is the free market system. And so the Democrats are still promoting getting rid of the free market system because that's the party of slavery. Come on now. So sometimes the truth stands alone, but I like being alone because all this stuff thinking takes time. I wish I had a better memory, but I do have the inquisitive mind to find it. And because it's based in the fact that I care about people knowing that they're being abused, and quit lying about people abused, and they're being lied to about who the abusers are, and they're running back to the real abusers. That's the Democrat Party. Adios. 1 John 4:8, he that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love.